because it's easy to feel content, or easier to feel content when everything's going fine or just maybe as normal. It's harder to be content when you get bad news, when you get bad grades, when you, whatever the bad news, bad thing is. And sometimes it could be as simple as a bad grade to throw your whole self-worth into whack. Hi everyone, I'm Shauna and welcome to the channel. Welcome in to the contentment year update, the year of contentment chat, where I talk about all the things I bought and how the month is going. Kind of like a no-buy update. If you've been here before, then you know the drill. I want to get into it right away because these videos are always very long, very chatty. So, order of operations. I can talk about what I brought in. The goal is to be as objective as possible. We'll see. And then I'm going to give you lots of stats and information, including all of the stuff that left, including empties. And then I actually have a bit of a data dump for the first quarter of the year. So I have lots of juicy data to talk about today. Okay, let's get into it. March was a bit of an expensive month because of two purchases. They weren't the first ones, but I'll talk about them. No, actually they were. They were the first ones. I'll talk about them together. I bought a microwave and a printer. The printer was $70 and the microwave was $110. I still have them. And you know what? Screw the neutrality. I mean, we're the first items in and we're going to talk about it. I don't think I made the best decision when it came to these purchases. They were panic buys, really. I don't want to fully get into it. This place did not come with a microwave. And then I was living with that one just for a little bit. And then in my head, honestly, there's lots of excuses, right? Like getting one is going to be more difficult because there's nobody to really drive to go get one. I don't want to haggle. I did actually contact 6 different people for microwaves and not a single one came through. Could I have tried harder? Yes. I just bought both of those things new. The same with the printer. Do I wish I did it differently? Yes. But it is what it is. It meant I got these things right away. Ugh. I feel like I just should have asked my partner for more help. He's always down to help if I ask for it, and I didn't. So actually probably would have been more like a $50 savings. Still nothing to sneeze at, and I would prefer my $50, but it was just one of those things where I guess, this makes me uncomfortable because as this project develops, I'm starting to notice trends in my behavior. This is one that is making me uncomfortable because it's part of a larger trend that I have noticed. And I want to kind of mull that over a little bit more honestly. I guess I really, if I'm thinking about it, if I'm being honest, I feel uncomfortable dealing with like making like the haggling that I just didn't press my comfortability to get a cheaper price when I know my wallet needs it, you know? It was kind of like almost like an excuse to shop online, which the whole thing makes me uncomfortable. Okay, let's continue. I bought a whisk as well. That's kind of been on like my kitchen wish list. It was $3.50. And then I also got a deodorant. I finished one and you'll see it in an empties video coming up. The one I bought is the Secret aluminum free deodorant. The small one I just finished was about $3.50, 45 grams. This one is 68 grams and it was $5.50. So a bit of a better deal if my math checks out. And this is in the cherry blossom scent. And then it's, you know, the aluminum free. It is not as moisture wicking as the regular deodorant because that's an antiperspirant, you know? But I really like this scent and it has a better scent match with me. So fabulous purchase. I also got a second bath mat for $19.99. You will see it on the screen. And the other purchase, hold on, I'm getting it. So I got this. This is a soap pump. It was $18. I love this, honestly, and I need one. I don't have one. I don't want one for lotion, just for hand soap. I'm almost done with the plastic bottle that I'm using now, and then I'll fill this up. So it's just kind of been sitting around here as a bit of decoration. Okay, so those are the first handful of things. The next handful of things, I got some headbands. I remember in a recent like what's on my spring wish list video, I was talking about a headband shop, and I bought 3. I bought the one that I'm wearing, and then I have this one. It's a seersucker print, and then I got this one. So they came from a small business owner on Etsy. I think her headbands are beautiful. They are like high quality fabric. When I compare these two with this one, so this one is nicer because you do have that the headband itself is gingham, whereas the bottom of all of these, you can tell, but you don't see it when it's on your head. The fabrics though are significantly thicker. This is a very thin fabric. My concern with these initially would be that they were too thick. Not the case at all. They sit like nicely on the head, and they're all comfortable. Like they don't hurt, they don't dig in, and they're just so high quality, and I have confidence that these will last. Hey, this is Editing Shauna here, at least not Sassy Editing Shauna, and I wanted to let you know that I reached out to the shop owner of the headbands. The shop is called Ronnie Blake, and the shop owner's name is Carly. And I reached out to her because I love the headbands so much, and she gave me a promo code for you all. You can use the code Shauna20 if you would like to purchase from her shop, and if you like the headbands as much as I do, and you get to support a small business in the process. So all the links to her shop and the code will be in the description box if you feel so inclined. When it comes to like makeup, definitely would say on the no buy, and that's the goal. But fashion, I'm kind of feeling like I shouldn't apply that term to fashion if I'm buying something like this, which wouldn't be a necessity. Anyways, the next things I got was a pack of socks. It was 10 socks, and it was $10. These socks were fabulous replacement choice. So I use the socks both for everyday use as well as the gym, whereas I was only using the little ankle socks for the gym. They are bridging the season beautifully. I guess one of the things that you might notice about some of these videos is that I get so excited about finding a really great basic. The next thing are some workout shirts. So at the moment, I bought workout shirts. I have 4 here, and I'm only keeping 2. The intention was to keep all 4. So they're just like, simple t-shirts. Got a white and a black. The black one is replacing one that is currently, it's gnarly. It's not functional anymore. And I knew that because I took off my sweater at the gym a couple weeks ago, last week before, and I was embarrassed. I spent like 45 minutes trying to clean up that shirt with, my fabric shaver. It's had its life and now it's over. So one of those is a replacement. And I was thinking, well, do I just keep the 2? These are the other 2. The pink is too bright, and then this one here, I don't like this pattern. I don't like the color of either of them. So I don't like the color of either of them, even though like the shape and the fit is good. So I'm not going to keep those. I'm just going to keep the 2 that I showed you. And I was thinking, well, do I just try those 2 out and then see how it goes, and then maybe get another 2 at another time? So I'm going to try and find, if I can, 2 more shirts, because it'll just be 3. It won't be 4 because I'm doing a replacement. I would like to have 3. I've just been having the hardest time finding basic workout t-shirts, but we're moving on. So those were $25 for 2. And then the last thing I want to talk about, which is one of the last things to come in, are a pair of shoes. I got these off Poshmark. These are the Rifle Paper Co. collab with Keds. They work beautifully and they are brand new. I ended up paying $14 with these out of pocket. I want to talk about those shoes as well, because those were an emotional purchase, and we'll talk about that at the end. So the total for this month is $331 for everything, and 22 items came in. 10 of those were the socks. And I counted them as 10. So let's talk about the budget. My goal is to bring in under 200 or less items this month or this year. So in terms of my stuff budget for March, roughly 11% was for March. And the goal is to, in order to hit the 200, I need to be in 16.6 items a month on average. So I did more again. And so far, the percentage of stuff budget I've used up until the end of March is 35.5%. And that's 10% more than the goal of 200. So roughly speaking, if I were to keep up this level of consumption, hitting another 71 items in the next 3 quarters, that's how many items I brought in today, 71. I will reach 284 by the end of the year. I'm gonna wait until the end of April to see if the goal should be modified. If you've watched some recent videos, I've talked about how this goal has allowed me to think through my purchases more on the whole, not every time, and we'll talk about that. But it hasn't, I haven't made the decision of, I'm not going to bring this in because it will mean that I'll have more than 200 things. You know what I'm saying? In some ways, the 200 stuff is an arbitrary number. And this project is making me a huge waffler, because 200 items is genuinely a lot to bring in a year. And the realistic and or the minimalist side of me is like, yes, bring in the 200, you can do it. The other part of me is like, am I gonna make decisions because I want to hit a specific number? Would I, let's say, live without some of the t-shirts that I bought, or some of the hobby supplies that I might buy? Like we make budget, or if you budget, the point of budgeting is to make room for the things that matter. And so, at the end of the day, if you're coming in with your budget, that's fine. But there is also that part of me that's like, 200 things is just so much. And as this project goes, every month there's things like 10 socks. Had the 10 socks not been in there, I would have been at 12 things, and I would have been fine. If I counted the sock pack as one thing, like 13, and I would be, I'd be Gucci. But there's so many things in our lives, and this is a message that I don't think I can reiterate enough, that we just don't see as stuff. We don't see as bringing it in, or as taking up space or room, or even mental energy. When we need to budget for it. We need places to hold it. And this is just like a reoccurring theme for me personally. And it's kind of like there are endless ways that I'm being reminded about this. So let me talk about the stats of everything so far this year that has been brought in, and just a little precursor for the stats. If I brought something in but then returned it, which is 2 items, it is not qualified in here because it's I didn't spend my money on it and it was returned. And then the second thing is that I took out the vitamins in that ginger tea I bought in January. Those are being counted as food. They're kind of high traffic items. And I ultimately did decide that the kind of consumables I'm going to track, or if things are given to me as gifts, regardless of, the price. And if it's like a splurge item, like I consider David's tea a splurge item. So if I bring in David's tea or I bring out David's tea, those will be counted in the budget. But the tea you get from the grocery store, I'm going to count that as food, and you won't see it in the budget. So this is kind of where some of the modified numbers a little bit. So far this year, I have brought in 25 fashion items. 10 of those were socks, but nonetheless. I spent $330. A full third of that was on the 2 camisoles that I got in January. And the total amount of stuff budget I've spent, not in total for like the 200, but out of 71 items I brought in, 35.2% of that was spent on fashion. It's the biggest category overall. Beauty, I spent $0. 4 items came in, and 5.6% of my stuff budget was spent on beauty. Home, I brought in 14 items, spent $171, and 19.7% of the budget went towards home stuff. Paper, 1 thing, $21 and 1.4% of the budget. Toiletries, 2 things, $13.49, 2.8% of the budget. PR, 2 things, $0, 2.8%. Tech, which includes the printer and the microwave, $219.42. That might be right, actually. 5.6%. And then consumables, 18 things, $45.92, and 25.3% of the stuff budget. Consumables, if you remember last week with the tea situation, 12 of those was with the tea gift that I got. Now, an interesting thing I wanted to tally is regret purchases. And so far this year, there are 3 things. The Aritzia dress, the letter writing paper, and the shoes that I have this month. It's kind of equaling out to 1 a month. And the total would be 4.1% of the 72 things and a value of $153.48. $100 of that was the Aritzia dress, so it's taking up the bulk of things. Let's talk about the stuff out. So the stuff out for March, we'll talk about just like the things that were finished. I finished 3 teas. I finished the David's apple cider tea for $7, and then I finished 2 of the teas I got as gifts. This is not the same as like the grocery tea rule that I talked about. So it's $0, but 2 items. So I'm not going to talk about the empties in this video because I have an empties video coming. It's going to be the next video in line. So for the empties, I finished 8 things and for a total of $62.49. For the stuff out, I finished 3 things for a total of $7. I did talk about I finished the tea. This month's total of stuff out is 11 items. And the total for both is $69.49. So the total value of all the stuff out for the entire year, 29 things, and a value of $254.02. So that's where we're sitting numbers wise. Let's talk about the regret purchase of this month, and it is the shoes that I bought. And they are my style, and that's not really the regret. The regret about these is that they were an emotional purchase and I didn't really think them through. I mean, they have been in my basket for a long time, but I put them there a couple months ago and literally made an offer on a whim. I was looking for some emotional release. I was clearly using shopping as a coping mechanism. Like I can acknowledge that. I feel a little bit embarrassed about this because it kind of feels like this emotional shopping is something I'm aware of. It's something that I know that I do. And part of me is like, well, you've only done one kind of emotional spendy thing this month. Whereas last year, between September and December, the amount of things I emotionally bought is way more than that, like significantly more. And I bought makeup and I bought fashion items. I kind of bought everything and I was going through some stuff and I just let myself do it. And now like I would say that was the time last year I was really coming to terms with the fact that I emotionally spend. This is something that I rely on as a bit of a crutch that I would like to challenge. And part of me is like, do you accept that this is something that happens? And if I do, it feels like I'm accepting emotional spending as okay. But if I say, no, it's not okay, it kind of feels like it's an opportunity to, beat myself up about and whatever. There's this fine line that I'm trying to wrestle. And I mean, I don't know which way exactly to go on something like this. I don't want to beat myself up about, and if I could return this, I would have. I think the other part of me about the embarrassment is that I have to be perfect in some ways because of the channel that I have and because of the messages that I produce. It kind of feels like I need to role model that behavior, or like, why should I be talking about these topics if I can't do it myself? The other part of me also feels like hearing somebody else be like, I made mistakes. How do I go with this? How do I figure this out? And so part of the embarrassment kind of feels like I should be... I'm not really sure how to deal with, honestly. It's not as big of a factor as it was in the fall time, but it still crops its head up, and I still do go back to it from time to time as a coping mechanism. And so how do I kind of get that bad habit out? And that's what I'm wrestling with, and I don't have answers for. I've always been the kind of person where it's like, if you learn from your mistakes, it's fine. But this kind of feels a bit like you're not really learning, because you're seeing it, you've acknowledged that this is a problem, but like, what are you doing? I think as time has gone on over my time on the channel, I've become more realistic about what I can and can't afford. And I'm feeling like this year I'm perhaps the most realistic about what I can afford. And when you live within your means, and you have lived beyond your means, even not significantly, but at all, living within your means can be restricting. And I think part of me just like doesn't like that, I mean, it's reality, and like you have to adult, and you have to do it, right? You have to do the thing. But the part of me just wants to be like, stop telling me what to do. Stop restricting my spending. Like my inner self, like resisting some of these what are good boundaries. And I need to push back. I need to tell my inner self, my inner shopping demon, listen, no. Like, you're acting like a child. You don't get to have things because you want them. That's not how things work. And ultimately, living within your means is exactly what you need to be doing, and the healthiest thing to do. And one of the reasons why I personally felt like I needed the quarterly update, I have a video on that, is because I felt like March was such a month where I was really feeling those shopping demon kind of vibes. Those, I want to shop, I want to buy things. And I didn't do a great job at like quelling my inner shopping demon. And the emotional spending was like, I guess almost like, I don't have the energy to deal with you anymore. Like, let them loose. Almost, I feel like maybe I don't have kids. Maybe the equivalent being like, your kids are just like annoying you and annoying you and annoying you and annoying you. And finally like, okay, have it. Have the thing. Like, ma. That's kind of what I think might have happened. If someone I knew came to me with this situation, I tell them this: it's okay to not be a perfect person, and setting ourselves up for a perfect no buyer contentment year is setting ourselves up for failure. We are imperfect, and it's our imperfections that are part of the journey. And like I said with no buys, it's pretty typical for a lot of people to be on no buys to break them, and that's part of the no buy journey. For many people, like that's equally as meaningful and valuable as sticking on the no buy or the times of year you do. Leave the guilt behind, forgive yourself if that's the kind of language or the strong emotions that you're feeling. And in terms of like those shoes, the $14 is not going to ruin me. I'm not going to be in financial ruin. But at the same time, it feels like every time you learn something new. So let's try and find the thing that we can learn from. The thing that I'm learning is I was in the middle of it and I'm like, okay, there's pretty clearly something else going on here. We need to stop and we need to address this. Whereas even just 4 months ago, I would just keep buying stuff. And I am addressing it. That's the thing. I am addressing it, and I'm finding outlets for some of my emotions. And I think if you've been here for the last 5-6 months, or somewhere in there, you would probably know that like I am very driven by emotion. And I've come to notice that when I do not have an outlet for an emotion, that is when when my shopping demon comes out. And I am very much actively finding solutions for my emotion. And it's not something to keep up now, but to continue. And by solutions, I don't mean the 6-week contentment challenge. I mean other things. And it's typically when I let these outlets for emotions, when I let that go, that is when the shopping demon comes out. I mean, I'm talking through some of these things to you to kind of try and think about some of the issues or ideas that have been at play. But in real life, in reality, this wasn't a, beat myself with the stick, crying on my bed situation. This was like a stop, hold on, something's going on. Let me figure it out. Okay, there's emotional circumstance here. Let me find an outlet for that. It was much less dramatic, if you will. And I would say, like, when I think about this in terms of contentment, this is something I guess I didn't think about when I started the contentment year. There are moments in our lives where shit happens. It could be something as simple as a fight with your child or a fight with your spouse. Not even like, a relationship ending fight, but just like a fight. Those things, those small, I don't want to call them small, but those things happen like on a monthly basis for a lot of people. A fight with a best friend, a bad day at work, right? Like not colossal events, but small things, even just a bad week where there are small things that happen. And maybe sometimes the results are big. Like you find out you can't move across the country, or you find out that your best friend isn't coming home for 6 more months. They're not colossal, but they're upsetting things that can happen. And I was not factoring that part of life in when I created the Contentment Project. And so how we deal with those moments is part of the Contentment Project as well. And the Contentment Project doesn't ask me or you to be happy all the time, or even to be okay with bad news. What I believe the Contentment Project asks us to do is to process these things, but not let them ruin our weeks, and learn to be okay, or to figure out how to be okay when these everyday kinds of situations happen. Because it's easy to feel content, or easier to feel content when everything's going fine or just maybe as normal. It's harder to be content when you get bad news, when you get bad grades, whatever the bad news, bad thing is. And sometimes it could be as simple as a bad grade to throw your whole self-worth into whack. So I think that this Contentment Project asks us to be even more mindful when those situations happen. And how do we bounce back? How do we deal with them? How do we figure out how to be content when those things happen in life? Not to be happy or content while they're happening, but to figure out how to process them and not let them affect our contentment and like suck away our energy. And I think that is the big takeaway of this update, is leaning in on how to do that. I'm going to talk more next time, I think, or I hope, about some ways to maybe get there. Because the shopping demon, and when we shop, is rarely ever about the shopping. And so I didn't shop because I was discontent with my stuff. I was shopping because I would say emotionally discontent. And how do you deal with that? And that was completely unexpected for this month. At the end of the day, when we're talking about things that maybe we bought and regret buying, but there's still an opportunity to return, even if part of you is telling you, or you're telling yourself, like, hey, Shauna, or hey, insert your name here, this is beautiful. I love this. This is the most magical thing ever. What I think it can be important to tell ourselves is that, will I look back in a year and remember that I even bought and returned this thing? Like, will I even remember this thing, because one thing that is in the back of my mind that I try to remember, and actually, comes up organically, is that there's never been something I regretted not buying. Not one. I will likely not regret buying this, or I'll not regret returning this. And listen, it's okay if you bought the thing and it's already in your home. So even though we can't apply the you won't regret not buying it rhetoric, you won't regret not returning it. You won't regret returning it. So the Contentment Projects introduced the 6-week contentment challenge. That so far is surprising me in ways that I was not expecting. And it was really the contentment challenge that I have been pretty in touch with my mood and my contentment levels the past couple of weeks. And I ended up creating this like writing prompt every day. And I didn't get to it on the actual 2 days that the things happened. I got to it on the days after. So the toughest times happened on day 3 and 4, and I got to writing it on day 5 and 6. When I was writing on day 5 and 6, I was realizing, oh shit, these things that happened are really affecting me. And that is when the balls started to be in motion, or the saying. And I guess that's all I really want to say for now. I created some writing prompts, which is basically just about like how getting dressed every day, including my makeup, or even some experiments with like hair outfit choices, how that affects contentment, and just being in touch with my contentment levels just in that way has been illuminating, truly illuminating. Yeah, I can't wait to share it with you. But one, I did have, or I guess in terms of contentment projects, I've been talking about having a wardrobe maintenance day. And what I ended up finding out was that a full just day was not it for me. I was cleaning things up, cleaning up my wardrobe and things like that in pockets of time. And that fabric shaver I have has been marvelous, and I've been doing it like half an hour here and there. So I've technically had my wardrobe maintenance day, but it's more like across several days. And I think that as well kind of helped rein in some of the shoppy vibes I've been having, because I'm spending like half an hour cleaning up my own clothing. Some of my sweaters are taking half an hour, and I'm getting like, in touch with my clothing and just kind of relaxing vibes. One of the things that I have been doing off camera, which I guess, I'm updating you on camera, is like taking up a hobby and spending more of my time in the evenings off of, I'm calling it TV, but really any kind of media that you would watch, be it YouTube or Netflix or traditional, cable television or Disney Plus, and doing things offline, or using that time to look up things for hobbies. So I've been doing calligraphy and doing more reading, and I'm actually thinking of implementing a full-on challenge. I don't know, like a week or 2 weeks or exactly how it would go, but it'd basically be like no TV after 8 o'clock. Figure it out. Or you could only watch like in a full day, let's say an hour and a half of TV, which would include, let's say, lunch breaks or getting ready in the morning, those kinds of things. And that would be like also YouTube watching time. So those are the things I'm kind of thinking about. And what I can say is the calligraphy, although it's only been going on for a few days now, has been very meditative, very relaxing and calming. And I found this to be, it's putting me in that state is certainly playing with my contentment levels in a great way. And I'm really tempted to just kind of start this challenge. And if I do it, it's going to be completely offline, and I'll talk to you about it in the next contentment update. But I have been loving that offline experience, and I think it's been good for the contentment. This update has been all over the place, and maybe I'll bring a separate video on talking about guilt and spending, and maybe how we feel guilt or how I have felt guilt. But I know that I'm not the only one who feels guilty about their purchasing or their consuming habits. And there's so many other ways that we feel guilty. And I think that could be a really great topic to talk about and will likely be cathartic for me and probably for you too. So I'm coming to you without everything fully realized, and that's okay. And I feel like I'm in such a learning season in the best way. I don't fully know how the contentment project can, or how I want it to tackle when you're having those bad days, but I feel like there's something brewing. There's a lesson brewing there, and I'm just excited for it to happen. I'm going to stop rambling. Enough from me. Thank you so much for being here today and following along with the Contentment Project. I hope you enjoyed the video. I'd love to hear your thoughts on how your own projects are going, how your no-buy is going. I'd love to hear anything you'd like to share in the comments down below. Thank you so much for watching, and hope to see you again around here soon. Bye.